and I love that you're writing. There's several ways you can write worship songs. You can write more from the personal experience of how I react to who God is, and then there's songs that are about the character and nature of God, but also the things that God has done and what He's going to do. And a lot of your songs really focus on that second aspect, just telling the story of who God is, which I think is what's so great about singing these songs in church is that, we're all there together and we're all learning. We need to be, even if we're not learning something new, we need to be reminded of an old truth. Yeah. And, that's, to me, this group of songs feels that way to me. Like, man, this is like really telling the story of who God is and how He interacts with us and what's our response to that. But primarily about Him, which I think is what really drew me into this bunch of songs. Is I can focus a little bit less on my situation, and really just think about the Lord and let everything else sort of pale in comparison.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that it's I think that there's for everything there are seasons, and so I definitely have times where that pendulum is on the opposite side, and Another in the Fire is a great example of that. That was like a fighting for my life kind of song. And, but I think that, where I've been at in my faith personally has just been gone, I feel like, I felt like I kind of had this revelation that, before my worship could be a weapon, it had to be an offering, Right. And so I kind of, I started kind of coming to very unhealthily resent like the hype around worship and it being about what God can do rather than just who He was.
Yeah.
And I realized that, I was the chief of all sinners, that so much of my worship was, it was geared towards like, well, I need a breakthrough, or I need this, or I need this. And I think that, I think that there, as with anything, when anything happens in extremes, it can get unhealthy, and so I think there's nothing wrong with that. But it's only one part of the meal, and so I think it was Louis Giglio talked about how we've got to give people like a full healthy meal when it comes to songs, and people don't always like to eat their vegetables, but you got to eat your vegetables if you're going to be healthy. You can't just live off of ice cream.
Good.
And I think I was living off of ice cream for a really long time. And then all of a sudden I felt like God started speaking to me about just worshiping Him. If He never did another good thing for me, He's already done enough.
Yeah.
And it's just because of who He is, and it's not what He does. And so that this kind of collection of songs, for I think the lion's share of them, would reflect that. And yeah, so I mean, I would imagine that pendulum will swing back the other way, from time to time. But I think it's important that as a community, as the church, I think that it's got to be a both and, like we can't lean so hard on that kind of breakthrough and provision and miracles and all these amazing things that God can do, that we forget that we first and foremost worship Him because of who He is.
That's right. Yeah.
And hopefully a lot of these songs can be a kind of a reminder of that.
Yeah, man, it's good.